Hello, my name is Tam, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Dortricia. Welcome to another powerful episode of IAmVoice podcast.
Today we have the privilege of sitting down with April Renee, a woman whose journey of self-discovery and faith will inspire and touch the hearts of our listeners.
Come and let me speak to your mind. Each and every cranial line. Press play, miss something, rewind. Reality is there's no time. No time to waste. Got on my game face with my Nelly Band-Aid. Living in the last days is game day.
Uncovering unpopular truths from a Christian perspective.
Whether you're facing challenges, seeking guidance, or simply longing for encouragement, we're here to remind you that you are not alone.
So let's get into the podcast. Welcome. We're so
April.
excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Good. Awesome. So, April, we're going to jump right in.
Okay.
Your journey is deeply moving. Let's begin by delving into the core of your story. Could you tell us about your experiences as you came out and your subsequent journey of rediscovering your faith?
Okay. Yeah. So, just go out and say it. I spent 5 years as a lesbian. And I don't fully know how I got there. There's many steps I feel that probably could have led to that. But I think the main important thing to me is that I got out. And that's no longer who I am and who I identify with.
I know that you don't know, like you said, you don't know exactly how you got there, but just tell us a little bit about your journey of getting there,
Okay.
and then coming out of there.
Okay, so I guess if I'll start from the beginning, I was raised in church. My dad is a pastor, and it's been something that's been embedded in me in my whole life, and something that's always been deeply a part of who I am. When I was 28, I'm 34 now, was when I first kind of got introduced to the lesbian lifestyle. Before that, there were a number of things that probably led up to it, such as I was raped. And I don't know. That's how I lost my virginity, by the way. But I don't know if that played a huge part in it. But I do know it played its part. When I was raped, I thought that I'd forgiven him, and I thought that I let that go. And then he came back into my life maybe 9 years after. So I was like 21, and he came back into my life 9 years later at beauty school. So I'm going to beauty school, and he's in barber school. And he's there, and he is actively pursuing me, very heavy. And to the point where I'm like, is he supposed to be in my life because he has my virginity? Because I was trying to save my virginity to marriage. And I was like, he has my virginity, so maybe he's supposed to be my husband. Maybe he's changed. And also, there were so many times that I've told people and they didn't believe me because he's supposed to be this good Christian man. That's what he perceived to people, this tall and gallant man. And it definitely wasn't really who he was. So, and this was like, I think I was like 26, 27. So this was right before all this is happening, before I went into lesbianism. He came over my house, and I invited him over like a crazy person, but in the daytime, because I'm thinking, oh, okay, if it's in the daytime, maybe we can not go through any of the things, no temptations. I still want to hang out or whatever. I didn't have like the funds to go out. He probably should have been paid. I don't know. I was just like, let's just keep it simple. And you come over, we'll watch a movie. And then he did proceed to try and rape me again. This time, I fought back. This time, I felt like I got my power back a little bit at that moment, only because you can't tell me that he didn't do it the first time. Between those 9 years, there were so many people who was like, maybe you were mistaken. Maybe it didn't really happen. Maybe you were lying. You can't tell me nothing. It happened because the same way that he did it the first time, it was like his eyes rolled to the back of his head and he was just like no longer there. And I'm shaking him. I'm like, do you not hear me telling you to stop? And it was crazy and how that thing happened. And then there was a guy that I was dating around that time too, and he was just he ended up ghosting me. He was nowhere there to be found. He begged me to be his girlfriend after 2 weeks. And I was like, well, I just want to get to know you. Like, give me a second. He was like, I know what I want. And if you ain't trying to be in this relationship, then you can go. And I'm like, okay, well, all right, let's be in a relationship. And then disappeared after a month. Just disappeared. So at this moment, I was really starting to hate men.
Discouraged.
And it wasn't just those moments that made me hate men. It was little moments from my entire life that led up to a hatred of men. Because I didn't hate that guy who raped me. That happened, yes, but I didn't hate him. But he did I think he played a small part. And it was just every time I dated somebody, it just started make me to feel like men were savages, incapable of human emotions, incapable of feeling anything outside of sex. And why do I want animals? You guys are animals with no emotions, and you can't understand that women have emotions, and I'm a human being. And I have no respect for any of you. I have went through that. I think right before I met women or started dating women, my phrase of the year was ninjas ain't ish. I just kept repeating it over and over. Ninjas ain't ish. Ninjas ain't ish. Just that was my
that
theme
was your thing.
of the year.
So when did you first meet your first woman that you say you were attracted to?
It was at a party. It was a cypher party where a bunch of artists come together, and we, the producers, they play their musics, and the singers and the rappers, we just freestyle, which is 100% in my element. Even though I didn't know it was a lesbian party, my friend had invited me. I didn't know that she was dating a girl, and so I found out that night too that she was dating a girl, and this was a lesbian party in a hotel. And
Surprise.
Right. It was actually my best friend at the time. And so she's jumping into this world head first, and then was pulling me along right behind her. Not intentionally. That was birds of a feather. Wasn't necessarily trying to get into it, but I'm at this party, and this girl is like on her knees every time I sing. She's like, oh, just in awe. And I'm like, calm down. It's not, you're doing too much. I don't even swing that way. But that night developed into a bunch of artists getting really deep and intimate with each other, talking about the things that we went through. And it seemed like such a healthy conversation that we all kind of had a kumbaya moment, and she told parts of her story. And then I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. And so then it was like one of those hotels where there's like several rooms in it. So I ended up staying the night in one of the rooms, and she was there too. And I found myself thinking that night that I wish she would get in the bed next to me. She's literally in the bed right over, and I'm in the other bed. And, I thought that, but I was like, nah, that ain't. Calm down, go to sleep.
Right.
And the next day we all went bowling, and I didn't even realize this was happening. Everybody's coupled up, and it's just me who's single and her who's single. And I'm sitting down at the table ready to eat my meal. I order the steak, I order the shrimp, I order a drink, a couple drinks, and I'm like, I'm paying for myself, so I'm gonna eat good. And she was like, oh, don't worry about it, I got it. I'm like, I was like, are you sure? Because I'm ordering I'm getting an appetizer too. Like, this is not it. You gotta do that. And she was like, nah, I got you. I'm like, okay. Like, I will be honest, I don't think I've ever experienced treatment like that. Not because I don't think men wanted to, but because I was definitely hyper independent, and I never really allowed people to. But I was like, okay. And then she started talking business, and that is my love language. To hear somebody talking. I remember I had a guy friend who once was like, we need to start a group where we come together as entrepreneurs, and I want you to tell me about your business, and you tell me about yours. Now we're just friends, me and this guy. And he was telling me that he think that we should just start having conversation and helping each other like a support group. And I was like, you want me to marry you or what? Like, are you asking me to propose to you? Because that's what I feel like.
That's sounding good right now.
That's my love language. You want to talk business? I'm like, you kind of smart. You kind like, you know what you talking about. Like, to me, that is like, so that's how she got me. And next thing you know, she was like, oh, I'm about to go do this thing. And I'm like, wait, you leaving? I'm coming. And then I think after we had left that day, we were on the phone for like 36 hours. Did not hang up. Had the phone on the charger, and I think I was hooked. And I think the one thing that I will say about women being with women, um, when you are craving, I think, okay, when you are with the opposite sex, it takes patience. Because it takes time to get to know somebody, and men don't open up immediately. Statistics say that it takes them at least 30 days to open up. And with a woman, they will tell you everything immediately, right then. Everything, all the emotions, all the connections, everything that you want is instant. And you think that that's something real because that's something that you definitely want. Like, as women, we want to have those connections. If you have no patience, and I had none at that point in my life, then this seemed like everything that I ever wanted. And I was very surprised in the package. I used to say, oh, I'm not a lesbian. I'm just we'll give her a fake name, Alexa Social, or Alexa's sexual.
Okay.
I just like her.
Right.
That's it. And then when that was over, I realized I was still craving more of that. I tried to date a man, and I was like, this ain't where it's at.
It's really interesting that you brought up that dynamic, because I can see how, because as women, we do crave, like, we're emotional creatures.
Yeah.
We crave that emotional experience, that emotional connection. And like you said, with men, it takes them a while to get to that place. It takes that. But that's the beauty in how God made it, right?
Exactly.
Because then everything's not so instant and not so feely, because you really don't, you need to take that out of the equation to get to the real
Trust
deal.
no man, trust only him. And,
Right.
and a lot of times when you're getting to know a man, you need the Holy Spirit.
Right.
And you need that time.
Yeah. We need that time to get to know
the
a
Holy
person.
Spirit and that person together trying to figure it out.
Because if you think about it, even as teens, and you're getting to know, you instantly make a friend, and then you find out 5 months later she's trying to get with your boyfriend. So it's like, but we have that tendency to be very, like, trusting, because when people open up to us, we consider that as, oh, they're opening up.
Yeah.
We're opening up. We connected in that area.
Must
So
be meant to be
right.
together
So
as
that's
friends or whatever.
good. So Dor, what do you think?
Well, I agreed. Because as women, we do share a lot, and we want someone to listen to us too. So I could see how you could get caught up in your experience with that woman, because she too is a woman. So you both were craving the same thing, giving the same thing at the same time. So it seems like paradise at the time.
It did. It definitely felt like it was everything that I'm like, why could I never found this in a man? Like, what is this?
Right.
This is everything I ever
So
wanted.
how did your faith journey intersect with your experiences as a lesbian at the time? We know you're not identifying as that, but we're saying that because that's the lifestyle you lived for that time frame. So how did your faith journey intersect with your experiences as a lesbian, like collide, like you said, you grew up in a religious household. And what were some of the challenges you faced reconciling the two? So as you come into this 5-year, experience of being a lesbian, how did your faith, like, kind of hit you in the face and kind of slam those brakes in your face?
That's a great question. I actually feel like throughout this journey, I learned more about God in those moments, more of a personal relationship with God in this experience than I ever have. So although I knew all the words, I knew the word, knew the Bible, read it many times, prayed, and had all the religious things, the personal relationship kicked in at this moment. This is a time where my parents they had to let go. My dad, as a pastor, he had to, like, leave his hands, and he, gratefully, they weren't supportive of what I was doing, but they were very loving towards me, and they was like, you don't ever stop coming home. We still want to see you. We are still very much a part of your life, and made it also very clear we do not agree, and we do not want to meet anybody, but we are still very much here for you. I could remember different moments when I was battling back and forth on whether or not this lifestyle was a part of me or for me. And I will be praying, not all the time, but sometimes I would be praying because I was like, God, this doesn't seem wrong. And then I will find verses that was so easy for me as a person who knew the word to find verses that made it work for me. So for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish. I was a whoever. And I know that some people's going to be greater in heaven. Some people least. If I was least, as long as I'm in heaven.
As long as you said
So if I'm least, I'm in there. What's the problem? I don't see
Right.
the issue. You know, they say even the slaves are going to live great. I'm okay. I made up my mind that I was okay with that. That I was okay with being least in heaven. And even I would tell my dad that, and he was a pastor sometimes trying to minister to me, and he would be like, you know what, I don't know what else to tell this girl. Like she's made it up in her mind. There were times where I will only date women who believed in God too, which is like a super trick because you thinking like
almost, right?
an oxymoron. You feel like, oh yeah, I might be living this lifestyle, but I'm not. God is still very much a part of who I am and what I do. And I remember the first long-term girlfriend that I dated, and it was a year long, and we actually lived together. And right when I met her, I was like, "This is what I believe. If you don't believe this, then you can go." And she was like, "Yeah, that's what I believe." Found out later, after I moved in, that she actually was going to a church where they pulled names out of a basket and then told you the names were of people who died. You would put somebody who died in a basket, and they would pull names out of people who died. And now, mind you, I didn't know that's what the church she was going. She said she was going to church. I didn't realize until I was like, okay, I'm coming to your church one day. And they would pull names out, and then the pastor would tell them what that person is saying to them, the dead, and speaking to them. Right. Even on their brochure said, if you are not you can only be invited to our Bible studies after we discovered that you believe what we believe. Our Bible studies are invitation only. You can't just come to their Bible studies. I'm like, that ain't a red flag. And then I think it says something about, we believe what we believe. And if you don't, then like, it was a lot.
It just sounds to me that it was just pure deception. It was just pure deception. And a lot of times, and a lot of times, and I just think about my own just different situations, how we will come up with stuff to try to align
literally
what God said. It's like God will be like, don't talk to that person. Don't mess with that guy. And you're like, well, God, I think you meant don't talk to him if he don't do this first. And it's like we will come up with whatever we can to make because really it's our will, right? Yeah. We've decided what we want.
Right.
We're overriding God. So as long as they can fit this mold, then we'll be all right. We can put them in this box. Then, God will be okay with that. Yeah. So it just sounds like but thank God you still had some of that in you because it still guided you. And that's the thing.
Those are the moments I kind of want to talk about too, about when God actually showed himself to me. I remember this girlfriend that I had, and we were arguing. She was like, well, how are you supposed to be a lesbian? How are you supposed to be with me? And you're talking about God and all this stuff. I'm like, no, because it says this, and, cracking up. And she was like, well, I thought you believed too. I do, but I believe this as well, all the craziness. And I'm like, no, this is not adding up. And I remember crying, and I remember going to my Bible to prove that she was wrong about something. And then I think I found where it was talking about Jesus, and he was talking about your heart. And he was talking about the things that, for some reason in this moment, it clicked to me about why he was changing things. So there was this law, and Jesus came, and they hated him because it was no longer Moses' law. It was more so, it's not about you doing it's not about you not murdering somebody, sending somebody else to murder somebody. It's about that you did it in your heart, that you did it. It's not about you not having sex with somebody's wife. It's the fact that you did it in your mind and you did it in your heart. And so I started to learn more. And that was something I've heard before and I've always known. But for some reason in that moment, it sank in. And I called my dad at like 3 a.m. and was like, is this what this means? And he was like, yeah. And then he began to minister to me. And I think I've done that several times where I will call him 3 a.m. because I opened up my Bible to prove somebody wrong on something. Because I kept people kept coming at me about what I was doing. Even the people that I was dating. And I was like not liking that. And so it was just every time I was in offense with somebody, I was pulling out my word, not, even though I wasn't trying to go to church and read my Bible or nothing.
So the people you were with, some of them would say you can't be a lesbian and a Christian.
Right.
They were okay.
They were.
So even the heathens was confronting you on this.
Right. They were saying that they believed for me to be in the relationship.
I'm not calling anybody a heathen. I'm just saying.
No, we have.
But then later on down in the relationship, they would admit that they felt like it was oxymoron. Like you can't do both. I have my belief, and that's good enough. That was good enough. They thought that was good enough.
Isn't that interesting that even people on the other side know it's black and white?
Right.
It's like I can't cross over there because it's black and white. God is so clear. It's black and white. And I love that what the enemy tried to do to deceive you in so many areas, God was still using you in those times to not only like continue to get in the word. And the scripture that came up too was when it talks about us raising children up in the word and they won't depart from it, that kept coming up because knowing your parents, knowing they continued to be there, knowing what they had already instilled in you, that still kept coming back up in you despite the situation or whatever you were in. But it's just amazing that not only were you ministering to yourself, I'm sure you were ministering to other people.
Yeah.
Even those women that you were with.
I think that the last person that I dated right before we broke up, and that was when I was giving my life to God, she said to me, I feel like I know God more because of you. Wow. And that made it even harder to break up with her because I was like, God is definitely telling me to do this. But it was definitely moments like that where I think every person when I recollect, every person that I dated, the subject came up and I definitely talked to them about it. And there was a lot of things that I also learned about that lifestyle that all of a sudden like clicked the moment that I was out because I was very confused when I was meeting a lot of the women that I personally dated. They never been raped. They never was molested. They didn't go through anything that was like serious. They was like, this is just how I've always been. And I tried to date a guy, but I just didn't like it. And nobody ever touched me. Nobody ever bothered me. My dad was in my life. My mom was in my life. And I had a good life. Everybody's very supportive of me. And I'm like, well, how did that happen? And then when I got out, my pastor said something. He was like, when you are a 3-year-old child, who taught that 3-year-old child how to lie? When you tell that 3-year-old child, did you wash your hands? Yes, I washed my hands. You didn't wash your hands. Yeah, but you have no water on your hands. Who taught that 3-year-old child how to lie? Yep. It came natural to lie because we were born in iniquity or born in sin, shaped in iniquity. Right. So I started to understand that if somebody says that they're born gay, you know what? I might give that to you because you are born into sin. You are born with these sinful natures and sinful desires and sinful ways. That is what comes natural to us.
Right.
But when you give your life to God, you then die and become supernatural. And that has turned the switch on for a whole nother thing when talking about being born again. People say born again. It's like, what does that mean? I can't die and come back alive. But like you literally become a new creation. You are who you were and who you thought you were, and everything that you believed dies and you become created into a new creation.
So let me ask you this, because this is probably a question that people want to know. Do you feel like you were truly saved through your lesbianism?
That's a good question. I'm going to say, from my experience on my end, Was I giving my life to God? No. But was I saved? Did God have my back throughout that whole thing? Did he protect me? Did he guide me through it even though I wasn't supposed to be there? Did he still use it for my good? Absolutely. I was very much, I don't know if I continue down that journey, I don't think that I would be saved.
I remember you kind of touching on that, like you felt like you had almost come to a crossroads with God, to where it was like it's either going to be me or the world. It's like you felt like God gave you that
He gave
ultimatum,
me
a choice.
So
talk a little bit about that.
That actually is a good transition towards the end of the whole lesbian journey story. So my ex, the last person I dated 2 years ago,
was a female, right?
Was a female. She was getting ready to propose, and I was ready to say yes because I felt like I had met the love of my life. And I got scared a little bit because I'm like, you really about to go and full-fledged be in this lifestyle. Like, you trying to get married. You say you never want divorce. Ain't no coming out. And so at that time, I really got scared and was like, I need to pray. And I told her at the time, I was like, I need you to just give me a second because I need to pray. And she was very gracious. She was like, of course, take your time and do what you need to do. And I'm going to do, what I need to do on my end. I'm like, all right, cool. So I think it was about 3 weeks and me and her weren't talking that much. And I started to pray and I heard nothing for like 3 weeks. And then I was like, God, you need to tell me. For a while.
3 weeks.
I was like, you need to tell
Waiting
me.
on the rise,
Okay.
Lord.
And just waiting and waiting and waiting. I was like, you need to tell me because this does not feel wrong. This can't be wrong.
Yeah.
The way we feel about each other, the way that
My
we've
God.
helped each other, this can't be wrong. God, if it's wrong, you need to tell me. You need to tell me now because I know she's getting ready to propose and I'm going to say yes. So I need you to tell me now. And then I believe that everybody who's been in my life from, all my clients who's been in my life have played such major roles on me coming out of that lifestyle. And I don't know if they all realize that, but I started asking all of them in that 3 weeks different questions about why they got into what they were doing. They weren't into lesbianism, but I don't know what it was, and everybody felt like I was their therapist when really I was listening to their stories and I was really hearing what they were saying and all their moments of how they came out of whatever, whether it was situations with their parents, situations with relationships, they all played a part. And then one time I'm with this client and we were talking about something in that moment. God was like, I'm not going to tell you what to do. You need to choose. I'm not choosing me for you. You know what's wrong. You know what's right to you. You make a choice. And when you do, I felt like I was honest. And he was like, if you choose her, I'm going to let you know you're probably going to be happy and you're going to have a good life and you probably will enjoy your life. But I'm not going to be there no more. This is the end of the road. I led you up to where you can be. This is where it ends. Jesus. And if you don't choose me,
I'm like, wait.
My God.
And then he was also like, but if you choose me, you're going to have life and life more abundant. He's like, you have no idea what I have planned for you. Things that you thought that you wanted to do, you're going to be doing over and beyond that. You haven't even dreamed of what I have you going to do, like the things that you're going to be doing. But I need you to trust me. He brought that meme in my mind where Jesus is holding a large teddy bear behind his back and the little girl's holding onto a small one. He was like, I need you to let go. And if you let go and you give this to me, I promise you, if you trust me, that you're going to have life more abundant. Okay, all I heard was God say he wasn't going to be there. And I was like, hold up. I was like, you should have stopped there.
I ain't need nothing else.
You said what?
You taking your hand away from my life.
You're not going to be where?
And here's the thing that's so powerful about that, because as Christians, we have this mindset that God is always going to be there regardless of where we are, whatever journey we decide to go, God's going to take that journey with us.
And I would like to go to Romans 1:28. I think it's like 26 through the end of that chapter. And it talks about God said he will give you over. He's given people over to, he's like, you've made up your mind. This has been your decision. I give you to it. I give you to a reprobate mind. I give you to whatever it is that you want to do. And even also in those scriptures, it's so funny because when I first joined my church, my pastor was like, you should read Romans. Read Romans. first chapter 1 and got to the end, and I think throughout my whole journey of being a lesbian, I kept looking for scriptures that said that I shouldn't be a lesbian. I was like, there's nothing very clear in it. I couldn't find a thing. The moment I got out, Romans chapter 1, and it said something about women will give over their natural desires for unnatural ones, and men will give up their natural desires for unnatural ones. I'm like, dang, it's right there in black and white. Where
you didn't see it that whole time.
I looked. I Googled. I Googled.
It's
a lot.
It makes me think about, like, when you decide to give, because it's basically you're going to either give control to Satan or God.
Yep.
It's only two choices.
Pretty much.
Because our will is if outside of God, it's the devil. Period. So we're either going to give ourselves, it's kind of like if we give ourselves to God and submit to him, there is a beautiful thing that happens, right? When we give ourselves and submit ourselves to the devil, that whatever that thing is going to happen. And I love that God didn't lie to you. He said, you're going to have a good life. You're going to be happy. You're going to feel good. Everything going to feel great.
Which is crazy because
but my hand won't be there.
Know that, like, people think that sin is supposed to, like, not feel good.
Right.
Sin feels
amazing.
amazing.
Yes.
It does.
It feels amazing.
Yes.
And they're like, well, these people don't look like, they look like they're perfectly
look
fine and
happy.
happy. And I was like, they might be. They're empty.
Yeah.
And they're always going to be searching for something, because I believe there's a God-sized hole in everybody that nothing can fill.
That
but
joy
God.
ain't there.
That
That
joy is not
happiness
there.
might be there, but that joy,
And it's temporary.
It's very
Right.
temporary.
it's fleeting.
It's not real without God.
So I kind of want to, now that we're headed back towards God, right? I want to revisit a little bit more about the sexual assault. You said that that wasn't necessarily the main thing, but I think something like that plays a huge part on your psychic of how, your mind of how savage as a man can be. Mm-hmm. And you talked about, like, you literally hated men. So obviously, your God is like, gave you that moment, that crossroads, and you chose what?
I called her and I.
What you talking about? We invite all to the table, to the special label. Hey, listen up.